Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and begin our Curriculum Advisory Committee meeting, which is today, November 30th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. And I am Marissa Beyer, and I'm president of Curriculum Advisory, and we do have a couple of new people here, so we might want to go through with those introductions. Dr. Cecil Scott is here. You could just go ahead and unmute and give us a hello.
Hello, I'm here.
And we also have, I saw on here, Mr. Brian DeGrazio is also new with our meeting today.
Yes, thank you very much.
Hi.
How are you guys?
All right. So we're going to go ahead and move right in. So next on our agenda is reading and approval of the agenda for today, which is November 30th. I'm going to go ahead and thank you for scrolling down there. We're just going to go ahead and read this through to ourselves. And if you are in approval of the agenda for today, you can go ahead and either give a thumbs up or use one of your reactions, which is the thumbs up reaction down at the bottom part of the screen. So I'm going to do it. Okay. Awesome.
So Helen, it was approved by Ryan and seconded by Ms. Barroso.
Okay. Next we have our reading and approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was October 26th. Okay. All those approve. Okay, so we do have an approval. I see in the chat. I need a second. Okay. All right, so we've got Sophia. Ideas was the first to approve, and we had a second from April as well. I'm just making sure we caught that. Okay. All right. So reviewing our mission statement and purpose of the committees. So if we could scroll on back up there, I'll go ahead and read this out loud. All right. So our mission statement, we are to advise the school board by recommending approaches to obtaining improved student achievement for all students through a coherent, rigorous academic course of study that provides the tools necessary to succeed in today's society. Emphasis will be placed on the dynamic development of a K-12 curriculum with a safe environment leading to both career and technical majors, the methods of instruction used to implement it, and the assessments of its effectiveness, together with a complementary professional development program to support it. Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and move to public comment. Sorry, I'm just sort of reading. There we go. Okay. Is there any public comment? Okay. All right. So we are moving to the board member report. I don't think that there is a replacement. Ms. Fisher is out or not present. So there is no replacement. Just making sure. Okay.
I don't see anyone, so we'll just have her do her report at the next meeting.
Okay, all right, so we'll go ahead and move to our next part. So we have the social emotional learning presentation. Lori Brooks, Mary Lynn Rodriguez from Calusa Middle School team. And we also have the Harns Marsh Elementary team here as well. So if Lori would like to go ahead, Lori Brooks, that is. We have two Loris.
Thank you, Marissa. Good evening, everybody. I'm Lori Brooks, the Director of School Counseling and Mental Health Services. And back with me for another meeting is Mary Lynn Rodriguez.
Good evening, everyone.
We hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. And as we enter the November meeting, we are grateful to be back with you, and we are very excited to, with your request, that we find schools that are implementing social emotional learning programs with fidelity. And also, I'm pleased to share with you with a lot of creativity. We were able to quickly identify two of our exemplar schools, in my opinion, and in Mary Lynn's. And this first school is Harns Marsh Elementary, and they have been implementing SEL across grade levels. And then, so we're going to introduce them first, and then we'll segue over to Calusa Middle School. So you can see how in a K-5 and 6-8 continuum, two schools are approaching SEL in a manner that uses evidence-based practices and also serves the needs of their unique student populations. And so I would like to first introduce the principal of Harns Marsh Elementary, Ms. Tracy Zanoniani, and she will be able to introduce her team and present us with what they're doing at Harns Marsh. So Tracy?
I am Tracy, and I have my two counselors here, Marta Gibbs and Lindsay Dunnigan. Also Samantha Stafford, one of our teachers, and one of our APs, Marty Iving. So we're just going to tell you a little bit about us. Marta was going to share the PowerPoint. Do we have that capability?
Can I put up the screen?
Dr. Quisenberry will assign her that right now.
You're now a co-host.
All right, Marta.
Oh, whoops, wait, I gave it to Dr. Iovine, not Marta.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Now you're a co-host.
Okay.
Well, okay. So, and I got to tell you, I have to give kudos to my school counselors because I would not be able to steer this ship in any direction if it weren't for them. And they're an integral piece of what goes on at our school.
So can everyone see it?
Yeah. Can you start from the first slide?
I'm there.
Okay, so we're known for maybe our kindness and our social emotional learning, maybe not so much for our technology. So nobody scores down on that. Okay.
If you
All
just click, where is it? At the very, you should have present screen somewhere. Hold on, I'm trying to find it on your screen.
I think if Marta goes up to the slideshow menu in PowerPoint and uses the view slideshow option, it'll go full screen and show it like a slideshow. There we go, from the beginning on the left hand, all the way to the left. There you go.
Yep.
Woohoo.
Beautiful.
Mission accomplished. Okay, so
For
we
that
are the
direction.
Harns Marsh Gators. All right, hit it, Cricky. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is my 6th year at the school. And about 4 years ago, we started dealing with some really large discipline problems. They weren't really your ordinary kind of problems. That we were having some real extreme behaviors, children physically attacking others, the elopements, you know, things that none of you are stranger to. And we also had a high teacher turnover. And so I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. I mean, was it the teacher turnover? Was it the behavior? So we set out in a plan of what to do. Basically, one of the things that really started was really reading a book on trauma-sensitive schools. And as we started embarking on that, we took some training. Marta is also a trainer, and she came in with that and helped us, do that. We had some teachers that, well, they weren't long stayers, and East Zone isn't known for probably keeping our staff, but part of that was a problem in retraining teachers all the time and getting the things in that we needed to get in. So those were some of our struggles. We did look into restorative practices. We did take the training for that. We also did zones of regulation, responsive classroom, conscious discipline. We were doing for sure the second step, that was our core curriculum, but we were just using so many different pieces. So we moved into trying to streamline and understanding the trauma sensitive care, and this was probably the hardest part, was getting teachers who come from an average middle class background most of the time to understand where some of our kids were coming from. Things like Ruby pain training and things like that, when you talk about students from poverty, really are helpful and insightful when teachers don't start taking things personally. So for the last 3 years, we have definitely been using some pieces together. We were using class meetings, class mission statements all along. We had really, in the beginning, had a half-hearted PBIS, but we started doing more of the trauma-informed care. We did a class safe place, and really worked on and focused on building relationships. And I think that helped a lot. But it still wasn't enough. We were doing lots of suspensions, and honestly, we were seeing 10 to 15 kids a day in the class, or from the class into the office, because teachers were just having a hard time handling it. So through my Title I funding, I did afford another counselor, and it was probably the best money I've ever spent. We've trained in the zones of regulation, which is also one piece that we piloted really through kindergarten. And that was where we were seeing a lot of problems as they started to come to school, and really gave them the understanding of identifying their emotions and learning how to handle it. So those are some of the trainings we've done. We did 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, added social emotional learning as a special. And the person who does that is actually going to school to be a school counselor. So she has a great time with this and uses it as part of her learning process. But more importantly is that we set a time in our schedule. So when we have to do our schedule, I always put 15, 30 minutes of social emotional lesson in there, so that that I know that it's getting in every day. And before Sanford Harmony, we were using Second Step. And then last year we started with a behavior committee, worked with some teachers and what they were seeing, also trying to get them to let us know what they needed. And so that was really a two-way street. So then we started moving from there, thinking about, well, we really need to streamline some things because we're using so many of these resources. Everybody kept saying, oh, we're doing one more thing, we're doing one more thing. And it really wasn't one more thing, but it seemed that way to them. We had a lot of kids in the MTSS system, and we needed a systematic process that would help us, really gauge what we were doing, but also to give them the interventions that they needed. Zones of regulation was real good with that with us, and so were the restorative practices. So bring us to this year, and which started, last year we started streamlining, and we went back to the PBIS again and realized that we were doing it half-heartedly. And that became really kind of our framework for putting a system together. Of course, we knew that we also needed a core curriculum or a tier 1 curriculum, if you will. And we chose Sanford Harmony for that. We do also use zones of regulation. That's kind of a little bit of our tier 2 and also our restorative practices to help when those pieces aren't going as they should go. The restorative practices, of course, takes time, but it is time well spent. We do have to use them sometimes to repair harm between students and teachers and students and students. But that's all, part of our process. The thing that we really found out was that as we were looking into Sanford Harmony, and some of the teachers used it last year, it wasn't mandatory because I didn't want to make a lot of changes, but they were seeing great things. So, and Marty, you can go to the next one. So then we went to Sanford Harmony, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Castle framework, and really the objectives and curriculum that we need to be adhering to, as well as your academics. But the Sanford Harmony had all of that in there. The Sanford Harmony fit well into our PBIS. It was really, even though they may have called it different things, it was exactly what we were doing. Like we were doing class meetings. Well, they call it meetup. And then we would work with groups of students in small groups. Well, they call it buddy up. So yeah, maybe the names and things have changed, but it put all the pieces in there that we were using, from the restorative classroom, the PBIS, the setting goals and doing a mission statement for the class. I mean, it had all those pieces that we were doing, and it really was very easy. It was free. The training was great. Their website is great. And it is so user friendly. It just all in one piece. And the biggest piece of it all, I think that's you'll see in some of the videos, is that the kids engage in it. And that's what is a little bit different, I think, than other things, maybe second step or restorative or any of those things, is that it encompasses the students in it. It's not like, here's what you have to do, it really is, and it promotes great critical thinking. And it teaches students some great vocabulary. So if you're a school in need of some reading skills like we are, it's great because it integrates great vocabulary. You have your listening and speaking. And you become a critical thinker, because that's part of their whole process, is becoming a critical thinker. So we're really impressed with it. And I wish I could say, it's worth the price, but it's free. So it's just definitely a great curriculum. So maybe some videos could help. And then after that, I could, maybe explain a little bit more, and I'll let one of our teachers talk to you. Uh-oh, sound.
Marta, did you share your volume at the,
Yeah, I'm trying to go back.
it's right where the share screen button is. If you pull up the share screen button, there's a little box at the bottom left that says share sound. At least that's where I see it. That's where I see it.
Try to click escape and then you can probably get out of that frame to go back.
Well, that's what I'm having trouble with. It won't go. Ooh. There we go. I finally found it. Now I got to get back.
Marta, on your keyboard, can you hit the up arrow? It might go
Right.
back a slide.
I tried it.
Oh,
Oh,
Maybe
there we
we
go.
go.
Oh,
Good morning, beautiful, wonderful people. Good morning, beautiful, wonderful teacher. Today is Wednesday, and I need somebody new to do our greeting today. Who wants to pick our greeting? What does the H stand for? Have respect. And what about the M? Responsible choices. And the E? Everyone's safe. All right, and we are going to greet each other in the language of Dutch. And in Dutch, you say hello by saying hello. Hello. So please greet your neighbors and give me thumbs up. Hello. All right, I see that you're with your buddy. Please turn to your buddy and tell your buddy good morning. Good morning. And can you tell your buddy I'm so happy you're here today? I'm so happy you're here today. All right, looking in.
A job. So what are some ideas of jobs? Just real quick, give me 3 ideas. 3 ideas, Edgar. Scientist. Scientist, Aubrey. Actor, Gabriel. Okay, a builder. Okay, so these are just different ideas of jobs. Of course, you can have any other.
We're going to talk about to change like a caterpillar. Sometimes we can feel like we're this caterpillar and we get stuck inside our cocoons. We get stuck inside, it feels a little dark and scary, and we want to talk about how we can spread our own wings and change into the beautiful, wonderful butterflies that we all can be. So, we're going to play this game and each go. I got two. Okay. So all I have to do is you tied. So let's have a Leon. You got a 1. You got a 1.
At recess, you notice that
We're going to do 1 grow and 1 glow. Real quick, what is a glow? What is a glow, Nathan?
something we're already good at.
Something we're already good at. What is a grow? Tatiana.
Something that we need to work on.
Something we're working on. Very good. So, Casey, I'm going to go ahead and have you write 1 glow. We're going to have you raise your hand. You're going to pick someone. And then we're going to have Aubrey write 1 glow. Or the other. Okay?
Thing we're going to do HME expectations. What's our H? You can say it out loud. What's our H? Have respect. Have respect. What does it mean to have respect? Gamaliel?
To be kind to your friends and your teachers.
Okay, so to be kind to others. What else?
A problem that you've had that was a 1, a 2, or a 3, meaning that you could solve it yourself. You're not being hurt, no one's saying sassy words to you. It's a problem that maybe made you sad, or it maybe made you feel just kind of a little bit annoyed. Like examples we said where someone's talking in class, someone won't be quiet. So think about a problem that you've had that's a 1, 2, or a 3 and tell each other, what's the problem that you've had? I know you have. Yep.
About you, but I'd rather us just work on our nonverbal communication.
Today. So So we've been talking a lot about empathy. Who can remind me what empathy means? What does empathy mean, Jacob?
Well, it's understanding and sharing feelings of others.
So we understand and share the feelings of others. We've talked about some ways that we can show empathy in our class. What are some ways we can show empathy to other people? Kayla.
Ask how others are feeling.
Asking how they're feeling. Tina.
Share. When you are feeling sad, what do you do to feel better? I would cheer someone up.
Now, I think maybe Miss Stafford will let you know some things from a teacher's point of view.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Just to reintroduce myself, my name is Samantha Stafford. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Harns Marsh Elementary School, and I could not be more excited or passionate about sharing Sanford Harmony with you today because I've personally seen the amazing things it's already done in my own classroom just after a quarter and a half through the school year. So a little background knowledge about my philosophy on class meetings is, to me, that was one of the most important things. It's amazing that I get to work at a school with an administration and principal and counselors who also share the same ideas and think it's just as important. One thing that I did see, though, when I first started teaching was that I was seeking out resources for my own class meeting from a lot of different places. And with Sanford Harmony, it became the one-stop shop this year. Not only is everything nice and laid out and user-friendly, but there are goals and games and ideas and lessons. There are discussion topics for the students. It has anything that I could have sought out elsewhere, all in one comprehensive guide. Not only was it easy to navigate, but it's also inclusive of all the other best practices we were already using at the school. So it's inclusive and marries well with our zones of regulation and our restorative practices, and especially with our restorative circles. I found that it actually better prepares our students to use those things when we start discussing behaviors and other topics that may not have been handled as well by this student before. One thing that I know that you guys saw in the video, and there is no faking it, there is a lot of student engagement. The kids get excited to come to class meeting. They get excited to talk about their feelings because it's the norm now. Not only do they get excited about this, but they get to lead a lot of these discussions. As a class, they come up with their goals of what they want to focus on. They come up with what it looks like and sounds like to act these things out in our classroom. So not only are they directing the conversation, but they're really jumping in and leading it. So the things we're talking about are valuable to them. Just like we explicitly teach subjects in the classroom, Sanford Harmony shows us it's also important to explicitly teach these social emotional skills. If a student didn't know how to read, we would bend over backwards and provide any sort of intervention we could to help the student read. If they couldn't do multiplication or addition, we would break out manipulatives and try to give them different scenarios to try to help them better understand. But a lot of the time we just throw these expectations out there and expect the students to act exactly how we think they should in our head. And that's just not the case. We need to teach them how to socialize with each other and how to use these social emotional skills, not only in our classroom, but so that they can use them at home and they can use them in the future. Looking at my 5th graders now and hearing some of the conversations we're able to have, I can't even imagine the amazing things they can go on to do just by communicating the way that they're feeling now. I am a reading teacher, so this is the part that gets me really excited, the vocabulary. Guys, my 5th graders can have detailed conversations about how characters in our books show empathy towards each other when they're really just showing sympathy and not actually empathy. They can discuss stereotypes in books and how the characters might be stereotyping each other in discussions. They can talk about how they're diverse and how they can include them. And that's all because they're able to talk about it about themselves. When the students are able to normalize these feelings and better understand them, they can pinpoint them in our literature and in our reading. They can also pinpoint them in the historical figures we talk about in social studies. They can even pinpoint them in themselves. We had a moment where we were sharing about empathy with one of our characters, and a student raised their hand and they felt really sad because they could relate to the feeling that that character had lost their dad. And the student quite literally said, "Miss Stafford, is this that empathy thing we've been talking about? Because I really feel it in here." And yeah, sure enough, it was. Not only does it build that big bank of knowledge, but they give a lot of role-playing instances with Sanford Harmony. It brings in that critical thinking component. They're having to think about these real life situations, so it's valuable to them, and it prepares them for when they have to kind of face those problems on their own. So I know I've said a lot of benefits, but I want to reiterate a few key ones that are really important, I think, to students of all grade levels, not just fifth grade. First of all, it preps them for those restorative circles, those tough talks, tough conversations where you got to break out the big words and talk about empathy and respecting each other. They now know what those words mean, and they can better communicate whether or not they were truly living up to that expectation. It also teaches them how they can talk about these things respectfully, and it teaches them and shows them that what they think and feel are important to the adults talking to them as well. It teaches them how to work together, and I've seen this especially in my centers. I know you guys don't know my students, they're a very interesting group, but my students can work so well in centers and in small groups, not because they're all best friends, but because they know how to communicate with each other. They're able to manage their own behavior and the behaviors of others, because we've talked about respectfully checking our best friend or respectfully checking someone in our group. Instead of assuming how they're feeling, we've talked about how we can show empathy to somebody who might be showing with their body language that they're upset. So these things have all worked together to really create that safe space and to create meaningful conversations within our own class meetings. So I can't say it enough. Even in just the short amount of time we've had this year implementing this, I have seen the biggest difference in my kiddos from the first week. You wouldn't even recognize them first week of school to now. They've grown so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Way to go, Sam. I couldn't have said it better. Actually, you said it a lot better than I did. So what Sam was telling you too, though, is that we had been, well, since I've been there, we've always done class meetings. We did do some of those restorative circles. But the thing is we've just not had anything that's like in one, that's all the pieces that we use. Even, the zones of regulation might go in it a little bit deeper, but it's good. The Sanford Harmony helps kids also identify their emotions and how to manage them. And that's where we were so successful with it in kindergarten, because, they're like herding cats. And just so you know, Ms. Stafford does have probably one of the toughest classes in our school. Matter of fact, we have 2 of her students are in the mental health interface. So, but, we can't give up on those kids. We've got to do something to help them, become successful. And so that kind of brings it home for us. And actually, our school logo motto this year is "You can't spell home without HME," because so many people are learning from home. There's so much about home, and we want them to really feel like their school is also their home. So as we move forward with this, we have a plan in December that we're going to start building the community, as in our parents and our stakeholders, around this, so that they understand what we're doing. Sanford Harmony does have letters that you can send home with each unit that you do. We haven't done that yet, but we want to, involve the parents as well and getting them to understand. We love this, and I can't say that that all the wheels are back on our bus right now. We still get a flat tire here and there, but we're better able to handle it. We can't do this alone, however. And so that's where I feel like we need support from the community, or maybe even at the district level. we were able to, and now I'm able to retain awesome teachers like Miss Stafford, and they're not leaving after 2 years, or in some cases setting their computer and their books in front of my office door before I get there in the morning and saying, hey, I'm not coming back. But I think it would be helpful if there was just some sort of quality training in the awareness of trauma, maybe even at the college level, or maybe even as teachers are onboarded. I get it. Not all of our schools are like, ours. I suppose the Sanibels and the Golfs and some of those others. But I dare say that there's kids that are struggling with trauma right now all over the world. I don't think we're an isolated case. Maybe we have a few more frequent flyers. I also think we need parent workshops. And one of the hardest things is that and I'll use a case of a kid that's in Ms. Stafford's room right now. The child is in crisis. His mother is in crisis with him. She wants help. She has gone to the police. She's called DCF, and everybody says, oh, well, you can have them arrested. Or if she takes them to solace care, all they say are they suicidal or are they homicidal? Otherwise, they're not, we need to fix the problem before it gets to that. I believe, like my 2 school counselors, they don't push into classes. They don't do lunch duty. They might be on the bus ramp, but they don't do all of those duties because they're all day working with kids and parents. And these parents are starving for help. And I think a lot of times it's that blame game, the trauma, and then they realize, oh yeah, your dad was arrested last night, or I'm the cause. And then I think all that guilt gets in there with the parents, and they clam up and don't accept the help. But I just believe that if we had just something, and I know we have the start of it with Chrissy, who comes out to our school, that has been marvelous. And she has helped with one of the other students in Ms. Stafford's class and doing a wraparound service with the family. We've got to do this, because if we don't do this, what's going to happen is we are going to have more students in those special ed programs. We're going to continue to suspend. It's hard, and I stand in front of my staff and I have to support them and support the kids too. But, I had one little kindergartner today, threw 5 chairs in her class today. So of course she spent the day with her behavior specialist, but go ahead.
So Ms. Ziniani, I know Lori Brooks is on the call here. And so I was thinking maybe this would be a good time for Lori just to talk a little bit about briefly, because I know we have Calusa that's going to be talking too, a little bit about some of the trauma based in decision making that we've just begun across the district, and just a little bit of a snapshot.
Thank you, Dr. Spiro. Ms. Zanoniani, you're highlighting a lot of needs that are in fact present and have been, and you're absolutely right. And Harms March Elementary is doing such a fabulous job with Sanford Harmony and pulling together all the other layers and having common language and common approach. And so I really commend your school on that. And that's leadership all the way through, everyone on this call, including support staff, everyone in your building. And it's a heavy lift to pull it all together. One of the pieces in our presentation last month was highlighting for the committee kind of the layers from student SEL to required health instruction, so their learning piece, the staff training piece that we have in place, and then also the mental health layers of targeted response for kids in need. And so with the staff training piece this year, because we came back from this time of remote learning under a pandemic, very largely unknown to any of us ever in our lifetime, we had pushed out, and one of the things I highlighted for the committee last month is we pushed out on-demand training for trauma-sensitive practices for teachers, and they can take that and it engages them not only in learning, but in real-time scenarios that they can respond to and then gauge the effectiveness of that response. And the simulation will suggest trauma-sensitive responses that will assist a student. And so we've got some on-demand mental health awareness training, trauma training, that teachers can point, click, and engage in. It's really for all staff. We have this all year, available on demand, all staff K-12, from bus drivers all the way through. It's anybody in the district that can do that. Less than ideal in a sense. I mean, I've learned from a middle-aged woman's perspective as an educator that, I really like this technology. But at the same time, there's such value also in in-person training. And we've been offering trauma training to staff, but it's very hard to engage a school for an entire day of training. So we're rethinking our approaches. With on-demand, we can also still offer in person as we have better opportunities to engage in the same room. But you've really highlighted some good needs of other ways that we can still deliver those trainings and tier them, because it sounds like you already have a staff that's trained somewhat in that trauma sensitivity. So one of our offers to school leaders too is, where are you in that continuum, and where can we help take you to the next level with your staff? So just some options, and we'd be happy to talk with you about ways we can do that for training that's specific to what you need.
That'd be perfect. And I do remember a little bit about that this summer, but it, went.
Oh, yeah. And we'll be issuing reminders through our principal emails. Now that we've come through this week of vacation, we're ready for another reminder you can push out to all your teachers. Right. And they can take it at each of the levels. There's elementary, middle, and high. They could take all three of them if they want to, and they can take them as many times as they want to.
Thank you. And thank you for everything you do and supporting us, because this is really a community-wide thing. It shouldn't be just left up to the schools.
Absolutely. And you hit on a good point too with the pre-service teacher programs, and FGCU has expanded so much of their training of our teachers to cover mental health. And I don't know if they have specific trauma in there, but that's another conversation. If they don't, I think they probably do, but you highlighted another area, all the way through the things we need to continue doing to continue developing our staff and educating our students. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for giving us the opportunity.
I'm going to look to our moderator, Marissa. I'm sorry, I wanted to defer back to you if you want to do questions first, or move on to our next presentation and do a group question. It's up to you.
We can do our group question after the second presentation, which I believe is from Calusa. And we'll collect all questions at the end. Like, I just figure, why not just have, show everything now and then gather all the questions, and we can direct them toward whomever at the end.
Excellent. Okay, well then, again, Ms. Zanoniani and team, thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll be circling back to your group with Q&A as soon as Calusa finishes. Dr. Q, if you could screen share over to Dr. Cole while I introduce, that would be wonderful. And so now we're moving on to middle school. We're growing up fast. And I would love to introduce you to Dr. Ann Cole. And she will introduce her team from Calusa Middle School, and they will present on their social emotional learning efforts. Dr. Cole?
Thank you. Appreciate it. We are thrilled to be with you this evening. And I have Ann Ticka with me. She is one of our 6th grade peer counseling teachers. She and Miss DiCarlo have every one of our 6th graders in their classroom throughout the year in 6th grade. They do a basically transition to middle school class, and it's a peer counseling class. And so she is going to help me talk through some of what we are doing at Calusa. Okay, Lori, you're going to have to help me and tell me how I do this, because this is not my area.
Do you see the green button at the bottom of your Zoom screen that says share screen?
I do not.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now I got it.
Okay. Click that.
Yep.
And you should be able to share your screen and launch the PowerPoint. There we go.
See.
All right. And actually, so you can just go to slideshow up at the top and view from beginning over to the left. There you go. Pretty.
Okay, so last month, my understanding is that Lori and Mary Lynn went through with you what the district is implementing when we talk about social emotional learning standards. We use their PowerPoint to just try to add what we're actually doing at Calusa. We do have parent resources that are available. We have family nights, which we are doing by Zoom right now, which is fascinating. We have multiple community partnerships. We are a Title I school. We are the only Title I school, middle school in the West Zone currently. So we used some of our Title I money to hire our social worker full-time so that she could be at our school with us. We also have a wonderful partnership with Cape Coral PD, and they have a fabulous Do the Right Thing program. And we also have access to the Hanley Foundation. The curriculum that we use is Second Step. We also are a Leader in Me Lighthouse School. We have our district health curriculum. We are an AVID school, and we also have the junior leadership program available at our school. So we have PBS, we use the Code of Conduct, Restorative Practices, MTSS, and interventions. We have a Student of the Month program. We also have a Student of Merit program. We use Castle Kudos, peer mediation and bully prevention. We participate in Best Buddies program. We have the Student Lighthouse team through Leader in Me, our National Junior Honor Society. We implement strategies through our resource room or learning lab. We also have a proactive room. We don't call it timeout, we call it a proactive room. And we also have a Model Men Club and Lavender Ladies Club. So the biggest strength that we have in our SEL program is definitely our dedicated staff. The relationship thing is huge, and it's a very, very, very big deal for our middle school students. And so that is one of the things we talk about even in the interview process, is about building relationships with students. Because if our students feel like you respect them and you earn their respect, they will go to the ends of the earth to please you. If they do not feel that, they will do their best to be middle school students, and they're very good at that. And so we pride ourselves on the fact that we try to make sure that every child that comes into the school has their person that they are close with and that they feel safe with. And so if Johnny's having a bad day, Johnny can go spend time with Miss Wold, because she's going to help him calm down and allow him to get his work done in a safe environment. And so we work very hard at that, and our staff is very good at it. In 6th grade, as I said, all of our students are mandated to take a transition to middle school or peer counseling class. They implement Second Step, the health curriculum. They have Wellness Wednesday through there. They do AVID school-wide. They do Leader in Me, and they talk about what opportunities are available at middle school, and they have guest speakers that present to their students. In 7th grade, the science classes do Wellness Wednesday, and in 8th grade, it's through our US history classes. Leader in Me and AVID are school-wide. So during the first quarter, our teachers have focused on decision-making, managing emotions, bully prevention, and dealing with conflict, health and wellness, stress reduction and stress management. That's been a big one this year. Building empathy, the 7 habits, nutrition, and growth mindset. So one of the examples is that our students were taught how to fill out a council request in Castle. They've already made 63 requests to date. So they're being very proactive. So we have multiple bulletin boards that are up in our hallways on Leader in Me habits and focusing on leadership, and also talking about our Best Buddies program and about Leader in Me and our Lighthouse team. So Ms. Tika, if you could talk with them about some of the examples that you, of the curriculum that you're using in your classes with Mr. Carlo, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Hi, I'm Ann Tika, and as Dr. Cole said, I do work with Brooke DiCarlo, and we have every sixth grader in the school. When Brooke and I first started teaching peer counseling, we had it for one semester, and it just wasn't enough. So Dr. Cole suggested we go to a full year. And the reason for peer counseling is basically to help make them successful in middle school. When Dr. Cole asked us to look at second step, we were shocked to see that it was a mirror image of what we had been putting together for as we were developing the curriculum for peer counseling. And it started out with starting middle school and describing challenges that middle school children face, and to get them to bond together to realize that we're all in this together. They all have the same emotions. It was very exciting for us to see how it fit in with what we were planning to do. And it did identify resources that would help us, as well as the district health department helps as well. If they find a good video on this or that, they make sure that we get a hold of that right away. They did revamp second step. And in fact, we were a little nervous as we were planning the year, because it wasn't released until the first week that kids came back. And it made us extremely nervous. And we would talk to second step and they'd say, don't worry, it's coming. You can just, we've got the topics for you, you can plan it. So as Dr. Cole said, that we started out with the first, it was broken down into 4 categories. So the first category was mindset and goals, and really with goal setting strategies. And it's based upon getting students to feel that they can get smarter, that we can all learn. It's that growth mindset. And we have a little example of a couple questions and a couple answers. We do all kinds of different things to try to work with our kids, including restorative circles or journal entries, using a shared document. And I think some of the answers came from a shared Google document of what's a challenge you might have at middle school. And right away, they all got to see that, oh, we all face those same anxieties. And most importantly is, where can they go for help? And as you see in the list, I won't read it to you, it really helped them the first day feel a little more comfortable than the previous years, where they were all running around and crying in the halls because they couldn't find their class. And it really has settled them down immediately and made them feel comfortable. We are a place where if they are struggling, they know they can always come to us. The second step then goes into recognizing bullying and really how to handle it. And with the bottom line of being an upstander, or being someone who can stop bullying from the sidelines, and the magnitude of difference that somebody can make. It also goes into a unit on thoughts, emotions, and decisions. And that's really coping with emotions. And this is where we get into development of the brain at their age. And when we ask them to, if you all of a sudden said something last night at home to a parent or a guardian, and you really didn't mean it, we explain to them that that's exactly what's going on right now. It's okay, breathe, be calm. And they start to look at us like, oh, that's how I feel. And it really, this program helps support that curriculum. The other unit is managing relationships and social conflict. And that's really how to select friends. So this is an example of an empathy lesson that we've done in trying to get students to understand that everyone has things going on in their life, but what are you willing to share? So we did the Walk in My Shoes project, and you never really understand someone until you stand in their shoes. And we asked students to select a shoe and write on the shoe things that they're willing to share. We hang them in the hall. We don't have their name on them. We tape them down so no one can pull those things off. And they're able to share what is going on in their life. And they take great pride in what they put together. And Dr. Cole picked a couple of these. If you look at them, my mom died when I was 7 or 8, or I was adopted. They really share, and then together they share if they want, and they get to see that they're not alone in what they're doing, and we're all there for them. Another component that we include that really makes a difference in the lives of our kids is community service. It's a little bit different this year with COVID, but we do a large unit on community service. Why do we perform community service? Get them into the critical thinking of who does it help? Yes, it helps others, but how does it help you? It helps you feel good about yourself, down to it helps our tax dollars by giving instead of always having to have our government step in. We had a student when we did the shoe project last year, and then we have them do 4 hours of community service, and we spend a long time on giving them suggestions and ideas and allow them to research. Well, we had a student, Luke, who came forward and he said, I volunteer at the Salvation Army food pantry. And I'm working, I'm a Boy Scout, and I'm working on being an Eagle Scout. And he said, it's cold right now. And he said, these people that are coming to the food pantry don't have shoes. They're wearing flip-flops. He said, would it be possible for my community service project if we collected shoes as a whole for the school? So this student actually initiated this project, and we did collect, I don't know how many pair of shoes there. We almost 200 pairs of shoes that we boxed up, and then he then took to the food pantry, and they were able to spread them out in sizes on tables. And he said he was so proud as people came through and they were able to pick out their shoes. So that is just one of our projects that really made just a magnitude of difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. So we are very fortunate. We have a very fabulous mental health team. Our school counselors, our school social worker, our psychologist, our nurse, our school resource officer, the APs, and we also have a licensed mental health practitioner that helps us out on Wednesdays as well. And so that multidisciplinary team meets every Wednesday, and they work very closely with the school staff, with our students and our families and the community to help all of our students and families. So we looked at how do we know it's working. In 1920, we had already completed 22 peer mediations. This year in 2021, we only have completed 7 mediations. We had 19 referrals for insubordination and disrespect. This year we have 15 at this point. Last year we had 29 peer conflict referrals. This year we've had 6. So some of the things that we ask for from the community is if anyone is willing to be a guest presenter to our classes. If there are any kind of incentives, rewards, or recognitions for students that are available, we're always looking for that. Any kind of help with donations. We have a Calusa closet that we have clothing and shoes in there in case any of our families need help with any of that. We have those available for them. And also, always we need help to advocate for additional funding for preventative SEL and additional mental health services for all of our students and families. So thank you for allowing us to present. We appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cole and team, for sharing your amazing work with us.
All right. Do we have any further questions for either of our teams or Lori Brooks? Any comments as well? I see a couple in the chat. Everybody's saying awesome job, great job. No? Okay. I'm just kind of looking at our chat here. All right. So, all right. Thank you for our link to our Padlet. So our topic discussion, once you click on that Padlet there, the question, let me go ahead and get mine up. So my question that for our topic discussion to kind of keep it going, what we were presented on from our teams here. So I put from the SEL presentation, so the social emotional learning presentation, which point or points do you believe could be a great benefit to our Lee County School District scholars, so our students and our schools? So you use the plus sign to type in your answer, and you can edit as much as you want. It'll start to populate on here. I can just share my screen, as that would make sense. There we go. So what points, point or points, if you have more than one, do you really, think that it would be really beneficial to our schools, our students? I'm an East Zone teacher myself, and so I took a lot of rich notes, and there's a lot of things that I think could be really beneficial to the site that I'm at as well, which is Veterans Park, by the way. Okay. There we go. There we go. Okay. Sorry, my screens were a little bit shifty. I had to figure out how to make it one bar at the top of my screen here. I'm used to doing it on a PC. I have a Mac at home, so it's a little different. All right, so what I'm seeing so far in the in the Padlet is common language. That's a good idea, especially when we're talking about that vocabulary. I know that that is something that, you know, a lot of students need a little help with. With my own school, Veterans Park is a K-8. So one of the things that I talked about is a lot of times, so it's only my second year at Veterans Park, but my own kiddo will be starting there this coming school year. She'll be in kindergarten. And so a lot of times when a kid is at Veterans from kindergarten and they move to middle school, they think that because the kid's been there for so long, they're just ready. Like, oh, you're just ready to come on over to the middle school side. That 6th grade transition to middle school is not only great for kids who are just physically going from an elementary school to a different school, like a middle school, but I think that would be a huge benefit for the kids at my school. Because even though they've been there, like it's not a good idea to just assume that, okay, they're ready to go just because they've been at Veterans for a long time. So, or from kindergarten all the way up, you know, I really like that idea of helping those 6th graders transition to middle school, move into it. So that's, I like that, honestly. Okay. I don't know if anyone else is still typing. I'm going to just do a refresh really quick here on this Padlet. There we go. And it looks like everything is updated. Okay. The power of a student voice. I like that too. All righty. So if we go back to our agenda here, I don't know if Dr. Q, if you wanted to bring that up. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we are pretty much done with our topic discussion. Action and next steps. So what we should talk about is something that if there was any questions or things that we would like to bring up on the topic of this for our next meeting. I know Dr. Wilkerson, you did have a question. I don't know if you wanted to go ahead and just ask that now.
My main question was whether we could have copies of the PowerPoints. I think that was my big question, you know, and obviously the bigger question is what can this committee do to help? What things would be of interest for us to work on in terms of SEL or other projects that we can give some advice to the board. I think that's our job. So we've had some wonderful presentations tonight. I learned a lot. I thought both schools did a terrific job. And it's great that we've seen what's happening in the best schools, but what can we do to help with schools that are, need some more assistance? What kind of recommendations can we come up with as a committee that would be useful? So we've seen the best. Do we need to see anything else? Is there anything we can do to help the district? That's the big, I think, idea here. It's not just to, I loved the meeting. I thought it was fantastic. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. And I'm really proud of the work that these two schools are doing. But where do we take it from here? Shouldn't be just a professional development opportunity for us. That's my feeling. I love that part, but that's not why we're on this committee. Allegedly.
Okay.
Well, that
So
went
we-
over like a lead balloon. Okie doke.
We,
What do you want from us? That's the question. Why did you spend 2 hours tonight with us? Or an hour, a little over an hour? What can we do? I will, in my case, I'm going to send a note to my dean and say, what are we doing with trauma awareness training? But that's just an individual kind of thing. What can a citizens committee do to help? Why are we here?
And I think that's the question, right? So, based around what you're hearing, the schools, what's happening in the schools. So we began this conversation with, we were concerned, about what happened with COVID and where are we with the social emotional learning components of our students. So then we wanted to hear, well, what are schools doing? And so tonight you had the opportunity to hear from, Ms. Ziniani and Sam about what they're doing over at Harns Marsh. You got to hear from Nicole and Ann about what's happening at Calusa Middle School as two different examples of what's happening to support students across the district. Lori Brooks shared just a little bit about, what is happening as far as trauma-informed decisions, what we're doing to help our schools realize that, and what resources we're providing. So I think it's, our question for the community, for this committee is, what is it that's missing that you didn't hear, that you really feel like we need to go to work on, or maybe get some answers to? Because, and you were right, Dr. Wilkerson, our job is to help provide for Ms. Fisher, really be able to help provide some insight that, can become some actionable steps with the board. So that's why the district folks are here. So we're certainly open to any feedback from this group, any questions they may have, or any suggestions, because we definitely are continuing to focus on the whole child. So hopefully that'll generate just a little bit of conversation.
Yeah, it's always difficult to take something that is really working well and find opportunities for improvement. People who are working really well are pretty good at finding out what they could do better, because that's how they got good to begin with. That's not great grammar, but I think you get the basic idea. The bigger challenge is figuring out how to help those who are struggling. And so I don't think this committee from this presentation can do much in that area, because we have no clue what's not going well. So we can't brainstorm ideas with people who might like to have some help. When you look at the strongest, now that's great. It tells you what it should be, but it doesn't tell you what it is everywhere. So
it's really, what did you not hear that you thought that you maybe would have heard tonight in support of students?
Well, we're not the experts. That's a better question for Lori, I think, Lori Brooks.
Lori, can you possibly shed some light for the committee on, because there are several options of programs, and how they're guided to select, and whether or not that's a process we could tighten up?
Sure. So tonight we heard from 2 exemplar schools, and I did use that word earlier, that they are exemplars. They don't exist in a bubble. They're an example of really what schools are doing across the district to address their unique needs within their school. You heard tonight, Sanford Harmony is free. And so you may wonder, some members of the committee might be curious, why doesn't every school offer it? Second Step has a price tag to it, and why do other schools choose Second Step? And I really do in conversations with schools, it's really what fits their needs. And you heard Ms. Zanoniani and her staff talk about pulling it all together, and that sometimes they felt like they were doing one more thing. And yet really they weren't, but Sanford Harmony pulled everything together into a common language. Even though a lot of the pieces were the same, it created that commonality. I would say that typically, and this was from our presentation in October, but you saw it again today, the CASEL standards drive our work. So obviously we're looking for evidence-based social emotional learning, and programs that follow CASEL standards would be those that we would put out to schools as excellent opportunities for them to consider. Likewise, there are schools, though, that will build their own SEL foundation. They may not use a prefabbed or pre-designed program, but they align their work to the CASEL standards. And that right there is really where the rubber meets the road, is are we aligning our efforts in schools to CASEL standards, and then also aligning them with the structures that the district has. And you saw a great example of that in one of the PowerPoints. I believe it was Harns Marsh, where they used the PBIS umbrella. And you saw under there restorative practices, the social emotional learning, and they had some of the other foundational pieces aligning. So are there some schools that are still struggling through the exact approach that works for them? Absolutely. I do feel like they have the ability through their executive leadership. Principals definitely consult and collaborate with their executive directors, with curriculum directors, with Mary Lynn and myself, with the school counseling and mental health and SEL piece. So they've got resources. One of the items we did a few years ago is every school incorporated social emotional learning into their school improvement planning process. And I know that the SIP, the school improvement process, may not be as formalized as far as the exact structure that's required. But part of the strength of addressing SEL is really, what is your plan? What do you use? And how does it align to the CASEL structures? And so it could be just a simple plan that's filed at the beginning of the year that articulates, and I know our schools have been overwhelmed this year, and they probably don't need one more document to do in some regards, but it could be the simple template that we've used in the past, where they memorialize at the beginning of the year how they're addressing SEL. And it could be a simple way to do it. We used, I think, a one-page document in a couple of years ago. So that's just one suggestion.
Are you looking for this group to help you come up with some kind of a needs assessment process where you work with each school and ask them questions about what are you doing and how is it working? How do you figure out what your needs are? How do you align SEL curriculum with CASEL standards? How do you know that what you are doing is working? What are your measures for success? Those kinds of questions. Is that what you want this committee to brainstorm? I'm struggling because I don't really know who's on the committee in terms of what skills they bring to the table that could be useful to you. And sometimes you build your plans of what you want based on who you've got to contribute. And, we don't know each other. So I don't, it's hard for me. I know what I can do, but I don't know what everybody else can do. And I don't know what we should do together as a team that would help you, because I don't know exactly what you want. I'm getting some ideas from what you're saying, Lori, and all those questions that I just reeled off came from what you were saying. But
I do think that maybe this is more of a contextual question for our school leaders. In the final slides from Dr. Cole and Ms. Zanoniani, we heard how in their buildings, the community may be able to help. And so I think more our question is at the school level. I think my question would be for principals, what else do they need from us at the district and from the community? I think that is more of our driving question. Although I do hear from the committee, and I may be way out of line because I'm not on the committee. So if I'm way over the line, please someone pull me back. I also think that I'm hearing in the discussion too, that the committee makes recommendations to the board, and then Dr. Wilkerson, I think you're struggling with maybe like, what is our overall context? Is that what you're trying to work through? Because you saw two good examples, but where are some of our struggle points? Am I getting that correct? That you're,
We can't make recommendations unless we know what it is that needs to be fixed, improved.
right. And I think really that's a question for our school leaders. Dr. Spiro, I would probably defer that to you. Do you feel like that would be on the right track? Is asking our school leaders what else they might need to address and implement SEL, or what's working well for them and what supports are in place?
Certainly, anytime you're getting feedback on any of your programs, that you're doing any type of program assessment, that certainly is helpful to improve the program. I guess, Dr. Wilkerson, you know, this was a recommendation. This presentation tonight was a request. This committee, as a couple of examples. That's why, you know, that's why they're here this evening, because we wanted to hear what schools were doing so that we could then provide feedback on, like I said earlier, what you're not hearing, so that maybe that there were some examples. There were a lot of different community members on this call. So maybe, you know, some examples of what they would like to have seen or heard, or aspects of the program that they really felt were beneficial for schools. But certainly, Lori, going back to your question, yes, you know, anytime we can get feedback from our leaders, which certainly is beneficial. So Marissa, since you know you're moderating, so we'll let you, because I know we have about 5 minutes left, so really determine our next steps on what it is that we'd like to do.
Okay, so what I am hearing is what we could do is go to our schools and maybe see what else they would need in terms of the SEL programs that are being implemented at the schools. Like, I know I'm in charge of the 7th grade team, and I'm also the reading department chair at my school. So one of the things that I could bring up is the whole transition to middle school, because that's something that my school doesn't do at all. And so I thought that it was really cool. I also liked, you know, the model men and the lavender ladies, and that is those two things I, you know, think would be a good thing to implement. But I am just one person. So maybe, you know, asking other members, even going to our guidance counselor, because she would have obviously better insight of what else we could be doing, or else what we also might need at our school in terms of our school's population. Our school just got a new principal as well. So we have that as well to kind of factor in. And so that's another thing. But maybe that, like going to our schools, I know that there's members who are not teachers. So I'm not sure what I'm asking is, what do we want them to do? If you're not a teacher, you're not in the district, you're on this committee because you want to help, though, where could they go? I guess I'm directing that to our district leaders here.
Well, really, that's this group here. So, you know, if anybody has feedback, they can do it directly, you know, to our group here, and give the feedback and suggestions that they need. And then we certainly share that, because that's part of the role of this group, is to gather that feedback from our community, and then provide that to the individuals that are responsible.
It could be as simple as you're sending out a request for information to the schools and compiling it and bringing it back to us to see what kinds of suggestions the community has. And that question could simply be, what are you struggling with in terms of implementing SEL? Kind of keep it simple and see what you get back from whatever schools are willing to respond, compile it, send it out to the committee, let the committee look at it, and then from their individual perspectives as community reps, they could make some suggestions that we could toss around and see if something comes out of that that is useful to the district.
Okay. All right. Okay. So with that, is there any other actions or next steps? Any other suggestions? Any other questions?
I don't think this is a action or next step in regards to the presentations, but Lori Houchin, do you want to talk to our presentation for January since it kind of switches gears, or do you want me to?
Well, there's still time for this topic to come back up. About 20 minutes of it we've been asked to give to a member to talk about proximity development. So that will be 20 minutes of the topic on January. And then as we gather this information, Marissa, when we send it to you, maybe you can create some type of feedback form where we can kind of gather what the committee's thoughts are on where they want to go with this topic. And then you can bring that back up at the following January meeting.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, so we'll take care of surveying the schools and we'll send you that information.
Okay.
And we'll send it out to the committee as well, but we'll send it to you first.
Gotcha. Cool.
The proximity plan is being presented to all of the board advisory committee. And so that's why it's up for ours in January.
Okay. Anything else? A good of the order? Any other?
Just want to thank the schools who did a fabulous job of highlighting what's working well in their schools. So I want to thank them.
Excellent presentation. Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to wish everybody happy holidays.
Yeah.
Lori Brooks, there is one question in the chat from Bethany, who asked how ABAR work fits in with this and what the district is doing to support that work too.
I'm embarrassed to say I don't recognize the acronym. Is this the BAR program that we're doing at one of our high schools? If I could just get clarification, please.
Yeah, sorry. I realized as soon as I wrote it, I did the classic mistake you make as a teacher where you think, oh, that's not how I should have written that. So just thinking about like anti-bias, anti-racist work and sort of how that dovetails with social emotional learning and restorative practices and sort of the intersection between those three. I'm sure that work is happening in different ways at different schools, and just wondering sort of that seemed like an area that we didn't hear about so much tonight. And also I'm coming from a high school perspective, so I think the conversations can be different with older and younger kids. So I'm just was sort of curious what that work is looking like in the district, if that's an area perhaps that schools are feeling like they need some support in, that we could talk about here as well.
So, okay, so I just want to make sure we're talking about the BAR program at the high school level, correct?
No, I'm talking about doing anti-racist, anti-bias work in schools.
Oh, I have you now. Okay, I apologize.
That's all right.
As you know, we also have Jarrett Eady, our Director of Diversity, and we also have Crystal Torres Nunez, and we have our department that addresses topics related to cultural diversity, and they've been doing a lot of work on resources to schools and engaging in conversations. So while our social emotional learning programs in broad ways, of course, address respect and inclusivity and topics that by their nature address in broad strokes how we're trying to help students recognize differences and be good human beings and embrace diversity and respect diversity. But we have much deeper work to do in the topics of talking about race, talking about diversity. We also have other topics for our other student populations that do feel at times marginalized in schools. And those are going to be related to our youth that are struggling with LGBTQ issues. I mean, we have a wide variety of needs in this department, and that's why we have a department devoted to that. And so their work is in its first, and Dr. Spiro, correct me if I'm wrong, their first 2 years I believe, since Jarrett and Crystal have been with us. And we are pushing out resources to schools to incorporate into their discussions and into their, I want to say SEL, but it really is more kind of the fabric of their conversations. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. I know there's work being done. It's not, I'm not 100% familiar with everything that Mr. Edie has been providing to schools. I know though that it's a strategic initiative to really work with our schools to provide this information and engage in those conversations. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, all right, so if there isn't anything else, no more good of the order or questions or comments, then we can have, we can say meeting adjourned. And we'll need a motion to adjourn. Okay, second motion. Okay, so we've had two to go ahead and conclude our meeting here. And just Ms. Hernandez, did you get that? Was from April. And is it ideas? It's an email, so I don't want to get it wrong.
Yes, I got it.
Okay.
All right, it's a bell.
Awesome.